Now it's time for the painting. Woohoo! Now, as you can see, I've done a bit. I sprayed this internal area black because I'm going to put this this little fella over it, this housing, and then paint over it. But what I don't want to chance is, I haven't even decided on a top coat yet, so I don't want to chance the top coat going through the hole then marking that. So what I'm going to do is mask it with something that I can pull out afterwards, because I'm going to mask it, then I'm going to glue this on top of it. To mask this, I'm going to use an old piece of actually dog poo bag. I'm just going to drop it in there like that. Make sure that when I put my piece in, it's not going to pinch the edges. Shouldn't do. So, pieces in there, glued in. I've painted it away and I want to get it out. Just grab it with a pair of tweezers. And it comes out. Easy as. And is it in one piece? Yep, pretty much. It's damaged, but that doesn't matter. I don't need it in there anymore. So let's just do a quick inspection, see if I've actually left any in there. And no, I haven't. So, that's it. Simple little trick to paint things you can't get to later. Oh, and also I've just remodeled this one so it fits a bit better. Instead of having it stopping at that point, I've actually put a little wall down. Now I can see I need to take a tiny little chunk out. There we go. So glue that, glue that, glue that. Do the other side. Usual thing, you mix this till it goes cloudy. What I'm going to do is put this on the inside of this recess. So as it goes in, the piece will contact it and drag it in, as opposed to putting it on the outside of this and pushing it in and having it all pushed out. There we go. Very easy. Okay, do this one. Same thing on this one. Put it on the outside of where the piece is going to go. But by putting it where the piece is actually going to sit, as I push it in, it gets pushed in, as opposed to being on this and pushing it in and it gets pushed out. Let's see where the position is. Yep, I'm happy with that. So, do the other side. Okay, done. So guys, the next step is painting. Just finishing off this handpiece, and I honestly thought it would take 4 hours, but it's been about 5 minutes. It's really simple. It's coming really smooth, and you can see the dark stains coming up in the slurry from the wet and dry, and that can't be the putty, so I'm assuming it's the wet and dry. Yeah, that feels very smooth, despite any lines you can see. So now I can pull off that tape, because I don't want to leave it on there because it is masking, but I want to pull it off so I can see what happens when if I damage the tape. If I paint the thing and pull it off and it damages the putty, it's going to damage the paint as well. So get little accidents over first. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Pretty good. So I've got my nice smooth bit. A bit of sanding to do. Plus, yeah, so that's nice and smooth and that's textured, so that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. As I said, I was going to just focus. I was going to paint the gun, but I was just going to focus on one piece for the filming, and I'm going to do this piece because it's got a piece of printed stuff with it. Got a lot of detail, a lot of levels and different colours. It's also got some clear stuff I've got to protect. Okay, the reason I wanted to take this off was to paint it black inside so it's nice and dark, but it's dark grey plastic anyway, so that's alright. So I'll just work from the outside. All I have to do is put, stuff some cotton wool or a bit of masking tape down there just to protect the clear plastic while I do the painting. Here's a little idea. I want to protect that plastic in there. I could put tape in there, but I don't want to gum all over it. Could put paper in there, but I don't want the paper to get soaked and stick to the plastic. So what I'm going to do is use a bit of this sponge that came in a package, and just cut it down the centre. So I've only got a very thin bit. that and just push it in. Now if that gets any of the paint on it from okay, by pushing it in I can see there's a little bit, it's a little bit too big, so what I've done can do is just cut it along that bend. So push it in again. Yep, pretty good coverage, not going to fall out. If any of you have ever seen the Secret Santa Nerf build that Adam Savage did for somebody, in his prep work, instead of using sandpaper, he used a scouring pad, one of these. And I, said on my video, Adam Savage used one of these, works great, go ahead, knock yourself out. I rewatched the video recently and found, because of the angle of the light, his scouring pad was actually this shape, but it was actually steel wool, very fine steel wool. However, happy accident, these things work fine anyway, so go ahead and use them. This one's pretty worn, but all you got to do is just rub over the edge, and you just got to get a little bit of scratch in there, not much. I have not had any real problem with large amounts of paint coming off on flat surfaces. On corners maybe, bits of high wear, yes. I have been asked online if these bits are going to be a kit to do up one of these. The answer is a provisional yes. Everything's pretty good, except I'm not quite happy with the magazine catch, so I might have to redesign that, and if I've got to redesign that, it means I might have to redesign that, and that slows things down. And also this front area, if you've been following the build, you'll know that originally there was a pistol grip here, and I used this because it had the Picatinny rail on it. Now that I'm using this and it's covering it up, this is not really necessary, but it might be for the sport of this, because this actually sits on this white rail here. So I've got to work out some sort of unit that can hold that into that easily for you, the builder, because I've just got a couple of screws in there and it's still pretty loose. So this is going to take a while, but if I can get it sorted, if I can work it out, yeah, for sure, I'll do it. Okay, just here we go, just rubbing it all over. And the other advantage of this stuff as opposed to sandpaper is it's a little more flexible, so you can get it into areas that need the sanding done. How are we going to paint it? What's it going to look like? So looking at it and delineating the shapes, automatically there's this huge block at the base here, which will probably be like gunmetal. Everything you can see there that's dark grey, maybe do in the gunmetal. This green and that top and that end and possibly this end doing like the body colour. Often when I'm doing a build, the blaster starts to say things and tell me what it is. Sometimes I've got a very clear idea, like the assault shotgun, what it is. Sometimes like the 8 rifle, it came to me in a flash of inspiration, if you can believe that. This one I've been struggling with, because the backstory, the couple of ideas I got for the backstory I've also been struggling with.
Like this, hit it.
It's going to be something like a lost ship sets down in this world. There's an indigenous life form, they interbreed, intermarry, build a society, and then become sort of xenophobic or something, and when an actual Earthship comes hundreds of years later, there's a small war. Something along those lines. That's cleaned up, ready to go. Right, so the first step is this stuff. White Knight, Rust Guard. I buy Rust Guard simply because that's all my local Bunnings seems to have. All different companies and brands are all selling Rust Guard. So it must be for that. And the other reason is I very rarely come across a can of red primer. They just seem to be as rare as hen's teeth. So that goes on first. That's sprayed over the whole thing, and then left to dry, but not long. Touch dry half an hour, 45 minutes. Then the next step is selectively spraying this on in little spots and sprinkling salt crystals on. The salt is just rock salt or sea salt, And if you buy one of these, you get it full of rock salt, and you also got a grinder built into it. And you get little bits of salt. So you'll spray it on, you'll trinkle it on like on the edges where there's wear, where there's been impacts. And then sometimes if it's not sticking, a little spritz of this on top of it will hold it in place. And that's the first step. Okay guys, got to work quick, the battery's going flat on me. Now, first step is the red primer. This is red primer, it's just a different tin. And what you do, you spray that on, and then you sprinkle the salt on, and you get this rusty effect. So that's why you don't do a grey primer, because when the salt comes off, you want the rust to show through. So you want to see red. So I'm going to just quickly spray this red. So here we go. Just light mist coats. He says, covering it with puddles of paint. That's all I'm going to do, because in doing this I've noticed this paint is pooling on this glossy surface, which means I didn't get any scratching, any sandpaper or scouring pad on there, so I'm going to have to do that again before I move on. Moving on to the next step of this, there's my little scope all painted up with the undercoat. Still a few missed areas internally, not a great issue. I'm doing this at my work desk because my painting booth is covered with the pieces I've just undercoat. So what you do, you get something to hold some salt, get your grinder, and grind out a bit of salt. That's all you need. I mean, I'm assuming you could probably use very coarse grain sand if you could find it. It'd have to be reasonable chunky size. And what you do, look where the model is and where wear's likely to be, where it's actually had paint rubbed off or you know, bashed around, and on the front edge, of course, on the raised edges along here. There will be some wear along the bottom where it bolts onto the gun, because there always is, because tools and scratches and, you know, and any raised area around it. So to get the salt on, you just sprayed a fair liberal amount of paint on the front. Just going to sprinkle some on. I sprayed some inside. It's going to stick there, not a problem, because always at a later date with this technique you can always paint over anything that doesn't look good. One thing I learned to save salt is do your sprinkling over your tray, so anything that misses goes back into the tray. Oh, that's a bit much, so there's going to be a big bit of wear there. And also, this is so you'll see, this technique is to show rust spots and wear. So there'll be a spot of rust and an area around it that's silver, which will go on to the next step. But areas where, like high edges, where they're just going to wear and the metal's going to be polished, or the paint's going to be worn away, that can just be done after the main painting's done with you know, a highlighter, dry brushing a silver along an edge. Don't be tempted to put this down, spray paint on it, and then go over it with your salt shaker. You'll just get too even a finish. It'll look weird. You have to be a little bit controlled. It's surprising. You have to be controlled to do the stuff that looks random. Now, if that's a bit loose, if you think the paint's a bit too dry, you can just give it a quick spritz. That paint will hold it in there. And when you come to do it, there will be a gap there somewhere where water can get in, and as soon as water hits salt, salt dissolves. So it's not like you're going to have salt stuck all over your gun. There'll definitely be some wear on the top of there. Because it sticks up, it's going to be the first thing that's going to hit things. But anyway, so that's the first stage. Now, there might be, a bit on the back there, there might be other areas I want to do when this paint's dried and I go back over it. But that's the beauty of this. You can add and subtract as much as you want. So, let that dry, which is probably about a good hour, this undercoat. And then we'll come back and we'll put some silver on it, and I'll show you how to do that. You don't have to cover the thing completely. You can if you want, but you don't have to. And then we'll take it from there. Okay, talk to you again soon, boys.